In Europe, all of the food is really fresh. There's not a lot of processed food.
Most people just get misled of how it all works. Seeing in Europe, you've probably seen people walking a lot more, right, as opposed to driving. It's not just, hey, Mediterranean diet equals lots of olive oil and that's okay. It's not exactly that at all.
Well, I just got back Friday night from my vacation, and I have to say that Croatia was beyond my wildest dreams. It was so beautiful, so historic, and so adventurous. So I went with my family, and one of the things that we love to do when we go on vacation is to do adventurous things. So
I like adventure. All right.
You like adventure? So one of the things that we did do in Croatia, it's all coastal waters and a lot of cliffs. So one of the big things that people do in Croatia is they jump off cliffs, very high cliffs.
Okay.
So I have a 17-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son. So, they like to do things that are a little bit dangerous and exciting.
I used to jump off of my my two-story deck into my swimming pool as a teenager. So I
you remember
these adventurous things, yes.
So we went to this little island. It's called Hvar. And there's this bar, they call it a bougie bar. You go to the bougie bar and you stand on this 40-foot cliff and you just jump on into the water. And so first goes my husband. I couldn't believe he went first. Then goes my son, then goes my daughter, and then it was my turn. And I sat there shaking. And then all I said, and this is what I say to the guests all the time, when they don't want to do something, but they know they need to do it, you just count down from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I jumped. And it was, first of all, I hit right on my butt and it hurt like a mofo, but it was the most exhilarating feeling that I've ever had. And I was so glad I did it. So nice. I would say that was one of the highlights of the trip. But I know that, we usually talk about food, you and I, because you're the chef and I'm the food police, right? So
we don't call you that, food police in the kitchen.
Food police, well,
we may.
Sometimes, sometimes the food police. Anyway, so, a lot of times when people come here as guests, they go on vacation a lot. That's a really big obstacle when you go on vacation in terms of eating.
Yeah.
So how can you control the eating? Because you're not cooking the food most of the time, right? You are going out to eat. So I definitely was paying attention a lot to how I navigated the food throughout the trip, and also navigating a new culture, right? The food is quite different in Europe than it is here in the United States. And I really, I didn't know what to expect, but I bring my tool bag and I try to apply all of the principles that I teach all of our guests here at Pritikin, which first and foremost is the hunger scale. So the hunger scale is a really helpful tool in measuring your hunger. So basically it goes from 1 to 10. And 1 is like you are hangry, hungry, you want to eat the paint off the wall. Okay.
Okay.
And 10 is you are Thanksgiving full, way too full. So we always try and stay in that range of somewhere between, I would say, a 3.5, which you're hungry and ready to eat. And then you want to end up at about a 6.5, which means that you're comfortably full and satisfied.
Not to where you're like unbuckling your belt. And
Not to where you're unbuckling your belt,
feel
which
bloated
is
and
really uncomfortable, which happens a lot on vacation, right? Because we tend to eat things a little extravagantly. So that was one principle, that I really tried to adhere to, because the truth is that one of the really good foods in Croatia is pizza.
Really?
Wouldn't think that to be true, but they had the most amazing pizza. And so I love pizza and I was on vacation. So I really tried to stick to that hunger scale. And what I would do is, first and foremost, I would always try to have vegetables before my pizza, because guess what happens if I don't have vegetables before I have my pizza?
You don't eat your vegetables?
I eat too much pizza.
Well, yeah.
And then I get to a number 8 on the hunger scale, right? So that was pretty interesting in terms of the food. The other thing that I really observed about the food is everywhere that we went, there was very fresh seafood, because there's so much water everywhere. So everybody is always catching all kinds of fresh seafood, and they literally will, you see them, filleting the fish and,
Nice.
and doing it right in front of you. And then you go into the restaurant and you see the little lobsters crawling around. So everything is really fresh. But the one thing that I would say that was a little bit different is that they would serve the food with most of its parts still there, let's just say.
Okay.
For instance, the prawns. Here in the US, when I have shrimp, I just see these little tiny
Peeled,
shrimp.
deveined, maybe even has a little tail still attached, probably usually doesn't. It's very much all the work's been done for you, yeah.
Exactly.
They'll make you work for it over there, yeah.
So there was eyeballs, there was antennas, there was shells.
You'll eat less of it if you have to do so much work, right?
So actually you're right, because the truth was I had to do all the work, so it took me a lot longer to eat the meal, so it probably helped me eat a little bit less.
Burned a little bit of calories working at it, so it's ripping it into those shells.
Oh, and
what kind of fish did they have there?
They had a lot of sea bass.
Nice.
But it was different. It wasn't when I have sea bass here. It's more of a Chilean sea bass. It's kind of that buttery kind of texture.
Yeah. And this one
was not.
Yeah, it's probably just a different variety of fish that they call
it was different. And I would say the fish seemed a little bit smaller.
Okay.
Over there
like
than
the portion size or the overall size?
Well, because they would serve you the whole fish, right?
Yeah.
And when I would look, when I look at a fish here, it just looks bigger. But over there, everything was smaller. And the other thing that was really interesting, which I think the U.S. should kind of take note, is when you sit down at a restaurant, what's the first thing they put on the table?
Bread,
right?
Yeah.
So over there, when you go to a restaurant, they don't serve you any bread unless you actually ask for it.
Okay.
And then when you ask for it, they don't serve the bread before the meal, so you can eat all the bread before your meal. They actually serve the bread with the meal.
Okay, there you go.
And I was like, wow, I should bring that over to the U.S. I should talk to Biden about that. What do you think?
Make it a law. Only bread served is with food, never before.
Well, I mean, think about it. You go to a restaurant, you're feeling hungry, they serve you bread, and it's staring at you in the face. So
of course
you're going to eat it.
Yeah, and then what's with the bread? You're not going to eat dry bread. It's with all the butter, with the olive oil you're dipping into, whatever it may be. And I think most people think that that's probably a healthy choice too. So I'll just go, instead of using butter, I'll use olive oil, right? Because they hear olive oil is healthy. They hear Mediterranean diet is healthy. And most people just get misled of how it all works. I mean, being in Europe, you've probably seen people walking a lot more, right? As opposed to driving. It's just more, the whole thing kind of adds up differently. People get more activity. They eat a different type of diet. It's not just, hey, Mediterranean diet equals lots of olive oil and that's okay. It's not exactly that at all. So like you said, you maybe, lots of more lean proteins like fish, fresh fish.
Lots of seafood. Actually, one of the days that we were there, we rented a boat. And they had a captain, and I was asking him about, because he grew up there his whole life. And I was just kind of talking to him about, what the culture is like and how he eats. And he said that, he works with a lot of tourists. So he sees how other people eat mostly from the United States. And he said the biggest thing that he noticed is that in Europe, all of the food is really fresh. There's not a lot of processed foods. They don't go to a grocery store and buy crackers and chips and all of that stuff. They pretty much eat, vegetables and seafood and lots of pasta. There was lots of pasta there, but it was fresh homemade pasta. It wasn't the pasta in the box that we get here. And the other thing, you said it right. Everybody walks everywhere. Lots of people riding their bikes. It's funny because when I'm home, I have to make sure that I go do my exercise because for the most part, I don't really walk around during the day because I'm working and sitting and doing all that stuff. So I have to take the time out to etch out the exercise. But when I was in Europe, there probably wasn't one day that I walked less than 15,000 steps. And it wasn't even because I was trying to. That was just
kind of built into
a part of the day because everywhere we went, we walked. We rented bikes. We did kayaking. We did cliff jumping. One day we even did what do you call those four-wheeler ATV.
Oh,
we did that. So when people ask me about vacation and how difficult and weight gain and all of that stuff, I guess I would say, like when in Rome, kind of like do it how they do it. And if you can, just go on an active vacation. You don't have to go to a vacation and sit on your butt all day. There's so many things you could do and see and walk and
there's different kinds of vacations, right? Like if you're going on a resort vacation to a beach and you're just sitting there on a beach drinking and eating all day, it's not exactly you're getting any activity besides maybe swimming in the ocean a little bit, right? But here you're getting a more cultural experience, being in somewhere and immersing yourself in that environment. And it probably was, my wife has been harping on me to go to Europe, so I'll have to pick your brain about where we'll
Well,
where
absolutely. We'll go. I mean, if you want adventure, if you want history and culture, I tell you to go to Croatia. And beautiful, beautiful. I mean, I'd love to show you some of the pictures. I almost felt like I was put inside of a postcard in the pictures, because the backgrounds, you see the water, you see the mountains and the cliffs, and then you see like beautiful sunsets. And, it's really nice just to take a step away from the real world and enter another world that is so different here than the U.S.
It's an experience that, immerse yourself in that whole environment would probably be very rewarding, and see what they're actually, and you can kind of gauge what's healthier than other things, right? I mean, obviously what they're deep frying, you should probably stay away from, right? But I mean, trying what you can and, trying to keep it as health conscious as possible, but still getting that experience that you want and feel like it was satisfying, and you got a lot out of it.
And it was interesting also because we would go to some places that were more local, where local people would go. And then we would go to other places that would be a little bit more touristy. And every time we would go to the touristy type of places or restaurants, they would serve French fries. They call them pommes frites. Pommes frites they would have. And you could see how they were sort of tailoring towards the American person versus the local person.
Gotcha.
So it was interesting to observe the difference. And the other interesting thing that I noticed, and this isn't really food-wise, but because we talked about how healthy their diet is naturally. It's not just something that they try to be. It's just what they are.
You give them French fries, they might start eating them.
They might. They absolutely might. But but so much smoking.
Really?
There was everywhere you went, it was like going back, I would probably say like 40 years in terms of how much smoking was accepted and available, and you could do it inside. You could, I mean, it was just, they haven't figured that one. Food wise, they totally are on par with how to eat and be healthy. But smoking is definitely a thing there. And I found it really funny because I feel like here in America, smoking is taboo. I don't really see as many people smoking today, but we may have replaced it with eating.
Yeah.
Because the portions are bigger. So it was just such an interesting dichotomy between seeing what life was like over in Europe versus what life is like over here. So.
Well, what was the whole purpose of you going to Europe? What was it for your daughter? Your daughter was going to school?
So my daughter is a little travel bug, a little adventure bug, and she decided that when she went to college, she didn't want to go to college here in the States. So she found this little tiny university in Lugano, Switzerland, which, by the way, Lugano, Switzerland is beautiful, quite different than Croatia. Croatia is very like old. You feel like you're going back in time, and then Switzerland is very modern and lots of stuff. Well, the mountains are beautiful, but there was just newer roads and newer cars and more of a hustle bustle city sort of situation.
Swiss chocolate, I'm sure too.
Swiss chocolate was quite good. I made sure it was dark though. I did.
To lawn standards, it would have been like 99% dark hair.
Well, I go to the 70% or above. But if lawn was there, it would be 90%, I'm sure.
I'm only kidding.
I know. But anyway, so my daughter started college in Switzerland. So our main purpose of the trip was to get her over there, set her up in her dorm, and took her to IKEA. And
it's like the birthplace of IKEA, right?
I believe it is. They had a big old IKEA there. We must have been there 5 times in 3 days.
I think it's Sweden.
And yeah, it is Swedish.
Whatever.
But anyway, it was there. And I also suited her up with an air fryer, by the way.
Okay.
They have this cute little kitchenette in her dorm, and she has 2 adorable roommates. And I said, I'm going to gift you with an air fryer. My daughter is she's a little bit on the lazy side, so the air fryer is perfect for
Hopefully
her.
gave her some good Pritikin recipes.
And I gave her all your air fry Pritikin recipes that we've shared together and some of my own. And I'm hoping that she actually cooks a little bit in her dorm as opposed to eating in what they call the dining hall.
Make all types of stuff, and keep it on hand, whether it be want to be, roasted chickpeas, have them as a snack as opposed to peanuts, or having potato skins, or having roasted parsnips, or having, little dehydrated tomato chips or something like that. And make a dip, make a roasted corn dip, make a roasted pepper dip, make a hummus, And these things are things you can snack on and feel like you're, still, enjoying yourself and enjoying good food and still eating healthy food, and,
Agreed.
and, my kids are struggling with taking their meals to school. What's healthy that we can give to them? It's still that they're actually going to eat. And
their friends won't make fun of them, right?
Yeah, well, I packed 8 leaves of spinach for my daughter the other day. She's like, I was like, I'm going to give you 8 leaves of spinach. You better eat them. And she did actually. So she was like all happy. I was like, you better not throw them away at school, But so but my son last night, he's actually turned like a whole new leaf. No pun intended,
Spinach
but
leaf.
he was like grabbing spinach out of the bag and like eating it. I remember me and my wife were looking at him like, finally, it's like an epiphany here. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
It's like, but my kids always eat fresh fruit, but the vegetables is something we do struggle with.
A little bit tough.
Yeah, but
the air fryer totally helps for sure.
I mean, it gives you a lot of good, new ideas. Well, they're 8 and 9, so they're not air frying much yet.
Well, you can air fry for them.
I'll air fry for them, yeah, but. I mean, you could definitely do a lot of things. I mean, but my daughter, she eats whole wheat pasta at lunch in school.
Impressive.
That's what she eats.
Very impressive.
She's like little Daisy Del Polo eating pasta in the cafeteria. So like there's things that they'll like, hey, that's what I want to eat. I'm like, okay, as long as you try to eat some fruit or some veggies, and those are eating like gummy bears and stuff like that. They actually sent a letter from my kid's school. Can you please send your kids healthy snacks? Or like, you can get it like a free meal here too, because like kids were getting sent like Oreos and just a bag of chips, apparently.
And that's lunch.
That was their lunch.
Well, that's probably because they were packing it.
Well, it could have been too, yeah.
Sometimes the parents don't pack the lunch and the parents say, you pack your lunch now, and then they get the bag of chips and the Oreos because they're not wanting to make themselves a sandwich.
Take a little thought into it. You could definitely make healthy choices, even if you have to pack it and go, whether you're taking it to a kid to school or taking your meal to work. There's definitely, healthier ways to make that happen, I like to pack little bento boxes, we gives you a good variety.
Those. And you can put a bunch of little fun things, some grapes, maybe a little bit of cheese, maybe a turkey roll-up.
Did you say cheese?
Oops. A little bit of cheese.
I love fat cheese and a small amount of it, right? So,
it's the kids. They could have a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I try to give my kids a little bit of like a homemade Lunchable type of thing, you know what I mean? So they get like a little cracker with a little bit of cheese and like a little piece of roasted chicken slices that I gave them. So but that as opposed to like a cured meat, which is super salty, So there's
the salami.
Yeah.
Salami.
Hopefully not.
No salami. No salami in kids' lunches, right?
Yeah. No. Just pasta apparently for my daughter.
So interesting. I made lunch for both of my kids from kindergarten to senior year. And now no more lunches for me because I'm an empty nester. Both are in college. Both of them know how to cook. I don't know if they always cook, but I have taught them how to use an air fryer. I've taught them how to use a washing machine. I've taught them how to use a little bit of oil instead of dunking it all over the place.
I'll tell you what, life lessons are very much hard to come by for young kids, it seems like nowadays, because my younger brother's in his mid-20s, and he's, anytime he's at my house, I show him techniques, because a lot of times it's not something that their parents maybe even known, but taught. They've been taught themselves, other than teaching their kids, So a lot of people eat out nowadays, and it's like so, disheartening to see that some people don't even know how to cook and realize that they're eating out so often, and they don't realize how bad
they have
that food is.
Yeah, they don't. They don't know how to cook, and so I don't know. Parenting is tough, but one thing I could say is I did teach my kids how to make some basic healthy meals, whether they make them or not. That is their choice.
And if you don't know how to cook, get in the kitchen and enjoy
follow
it. It's follow some instructions and don't feel discouraged. It's easy to cook. It's fun to do it. Call Chef Vince. Call Chef Kara here.
Well, I'll tell them how to eat, and then you'll cook it.
There you go.
How about that?
Fair enough.
Okay.